Back in the friendly confines of the Las Vegas Strip, it's Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app. Gil Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, Sirius XM Channel 204, and Jay Rude, Vice President, Racing Sports, MGM Resorts International. Jay, it is championship week, and we are at Park MGM, the Money Line Sports Bar and Book. After 3 weeks on the road, Mississippi and New Jersey, Biloxi, Tunica, Atlantic City.
Right, good to be back home.
Yeah.
Got the big weekend ahead of us. It's going to determine who's going to get in the Super Bowl. I mean, it doesn't get a lot better than this weekend.
It does not. Saints and Rams in the NFC, Patriots and Chiefs in the AFC. We'll break it down. Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app. Back on Behind the Book from the Money Line Sports Bar and Book here in Las Vegas, Park MGM. It's Gil Alexander from VSiN, Jay Rude from MGM. Park MGM, great restaurants, and you know what's brand new over there?
Yeah.
Italy. Have you been?
No, I haven't. I was gonna, after the show, take a little walk through and see what all they've got. You know.
I'm all about it. That's exactly what I'm planning on doing. You're invited.
Thank
you.
Come with me. Sure.
All right, let's talk a little football. Rams and Saints, NFC Championship. That starts Championship Sunday, Jay, with the Saints 3.5-point favorites. 3 in the hook, total 56.5. Rams are here by virtue of their win over the Cowboys this past Saturday. Got it done. Ground game, total ground game. C.J. Anderson, 23 carries, 123 yards. Todd Gurley, 16 carries, 115 yards. 2 touchdowns for Anderson, 1 for Gurley. Really didn't need Jared Goff that much, which is either a good thing or maybe a portent of things to come. I don't know. Saints spot the Eagles 14 points, come all the way back, win it 20-14, but don't cover.
Yeah. And I mean, the Rams situation with the running back was weird, you know, because you and I were watching it together and we were like, where's Gurley? What's going on here?
Gurley?
And I think it was possibly, you know, the strategy. They were just pounding him with the big guy, softening up that defense a little bit, and then, hey, let's put in the quicker guy in a little bit later that should be able to, you know, pop through some holes. I mean, you know, just because all you need is just a split second to avoid some defenders. So whatever it was, I mean, McVay had a great game plan in place. You know, Cowboys, you know, played respectable. I think if you ask the average Cowboy fan, they're kind of happy with this season a little bit. Although, you know, the ones that really want Garrett out, you know, probably like, he did just enough to keep his job, you know. But
the clapper, they call him.
Right, yeah. So, you know, I mean, it was good matchup. I think this matchup's going to be outstanding. Obviously, you know, good rematch of what we had before. You know, I think we're going to be in the boat of needing the Rams pretty good in this game. I think a lot of the public is going to land on the Saints. I think a lot of people are just sort of thinking this is the Saints' like destined year.
This one.
Destiny.
Well, it's 3.5. So the obvious question to ask of you is, does that come down to the 3? We do this, you know, fairly late-ish in the week. Hasn't moved yet. Do you think by game time it will, or will money come in on the Saints even?
I think money come in on the Saints. I think there's a stronger propensity for it to go to 4 than to obviously come down to 3. Going to 3 is a much different decision than going to 4. More significant liability if we come down to 3. Going up to 4, all right, you know, we're avoiding trying to reduce our liability on the side that I think that the public is going to fall on. I'm really not of a certain mindset of what I think the sharp community is going to do on this game. I do think possibly the sharp community could bet this game under because of the game plan that was obviously shown by the Rams last week, you know, run the ball. And, you know, the Saints have, you know, played games of, you know, ball control, long drives. You know, so I think the scoring opportunities for the sharps to play this under is probably the bigger of all the plays on this game.
Play the under.
Yeah.
And in that case, do they wait because this number's only going to move higher?
Probably.
On the total?
I mean, most people are going to bet this over in a dome, 2 high-scoring offenses. The perception is, you know, and I think that's the opportunity the sharps will play. The public is obviously going to be on over and I think on the favorite.
Yeah, Saints beat the Rams earlier this year. Did so by 10 points. I believe that was in November. We'll see what the rematch holds. Again, 3.5 points. That's what the Saints are favored by in the NFC Championship. The total is 56.5. We'll see how it's done. That's the early game on Sunday. Patriots and the Chiefs coming next on Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app. Back on Behind the Book from the Moneyline Sports Bar and Book, Park MGM, here on the beautiful Las Vegas Strip. Park MGM renovated here in Las Vegas, and a whole slate of restaurants, one better than the next. Italy, we mentioned earlier. There's also Bavette's great steak, wedge salad, out of control at Bavette's.
Yeah.
Primrose
Perfect.
for breakfast.
Great. I mean, this whole property, I mean, they kind of like went from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I mean, that's kind of what they've done here, right?
So poetic.
Good analogy, right?
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's
rude.
outstanding. I mean, they got the Nomad Hotel here now
Yes.
and a great bar. And
Exactly.
I mean, you wouldn't even recognize this property if you've been to the old Monte Carlo.
That's right. Formerly the Monte Carlo, now Park MGM. New England at Kansas City, more on topic, Jay, is the second of two championship games. It's the AFC Championship, of course. Kansas City, 3-point favorites. Now, this total was north of 57. It's about 57.5. It's come down. The reason it's come down is because the forecast on Sunday for this game is calling for subarctic temperatures. I actually had to look up the difference between, what Arctic and subarctic was. And the only thing I came up with was go to the Arctic Circle and then keep going south. I don't understand. I don't understand what that means.
Right.
It's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold.
How does that affect gameplay?
And there's going to be apparently a blood wolf moon something that is, lunar eclipse or something like that.
Yeah.
That you got to throw into your handicapping, of course.
Clearly.
A
blood wolf, whatever he said.
That should affect the kicking game, I think.
By the way, good thing the Chargers hired that kicker for that game.
Oh, yeah, that worked out really well.
So
the
Patriots are here because they destroyed the Chargers on Sunday. Absolutely destroyed them. Anthony Lynn and the Chargers with no answers, no adjustments in that game. The day before, Chiefs beat a very listless Andrew Luck and the Indianapolis Colts. Was that your biggest decision as a book? The Colts getting destroyed to the extent that they did?
Yeah, that was the biggest game of the year so far for us, as far as a revenue producer. I mean,
wow, biggest single game.
Biggest single game. A ton of people. I mean, how we did to that game, I would have loved, 5-6 years ago, the Super Bowl to end up like that. So it was a really good game for us.
Which Super Bowl you're referring to?
Any of them,
right.
back 5 or 6 years ago. But that game, it was just a pile on, right? I mean, I think the Sharp community was on the Colts. A lot of the average Joes were on the Colts, and the only concern there, if I'm the guy that's looking at Kansas City in this next game, is everything they did was in the first half. The second half they sort of just went into a shell and didn't do a whole lot, but they didn't need to. I mean, when you got Andrew Luck throwing the ball at the feet of his receivers, and getting you get some momentum, you get a strip sack, and then you bring it right back. I mean, it just was, a kind of a crazy second half. You thought they were going to get back into it for a second, and then they hand it right back to the Chiefs to just basically snuff the life out of that game.
Yeah, there was a AFC Championship when we were kids, Jay, way back in the day. It was after the 1981 season, I believe, and it was in Cincinnati. And the Chargers, the San Diego Chargers at that time, came into Cincinnati, and when they got off the bus, they had lost the game. They were coming from California. It was 9 degrees below zero. It's not quite expected to be that cold here. And New England, obviously, they're not coming from California. Right. They're used to this. It's Bill Belichick in the Patriots' 8th consecutive AFC championship. That's mind-boggling. When I was a kid, I was a Washington Redskins fan growing up in D.C. I used to joke with Giants fans.
Sorry about that.
We won 3 Super Bowls.
We,
by the way, used we. I used to joke that if Joe Gibbs had Lawrence Taylor, the Redskins would have won 13 Super Bowls. That was the number I used to joke about. This is Belichick and Brady's, not Super Bowl, but 13th AFC championship. I was just joking around. This team actually has been on the doorstep of 13 Super Bowls. It's incredible. Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, say whether you like them or hate them, whatever their recipe is, and whoever they sold their soul to, it's working. I mean, they get it done, that's for sure. And that's why, we're going to, in our next segment, we're going to talk about what the potential Super Bowl lines could be down the road. I have a very strong opinion if the Patriots get into the Super Bowl on what that's going to look like.
You do, and it's not a consensus opinion
either. It's not
either.
a consensus opinion at all. And it's just because, everyone's like, it's hard to go against Brady and Belichick, especially in the biggest game of the year. And, the only ones that have really solved that is New York Giants. They don't. As long as they don't see them in there, I think they're feeling pretty good about their chances.
As long as Eli Manning's not throwing some kind of bomb. Back to the total, lastly, though. Here, it's down to 55.5.
Yeah.
And it's all weather forecast driven. It's funny. I thought about this last week when we were watching the Colts and the Chiefs. It's like everybody turned on their TV before that game and was like, oh, look, snow.
Right.
Maybe we should bet the under. We know this is going to keep going under. It's probably going to keep on coming down. And I would imagine there's still some people going to turn on the TV on Sunday and be like, oh, my God.
Right.
Under.
Act like they didn't see it. But, I mean, as long as the wind is not too significant, cold is cold. I mean, trust me, they've got the clothes that they have now and the heaters on the sideline. I mean, these guys are going to go out. I mean, you and I, we walked a few blocks the other day in the cold, and we were all miserable. But
we lost one. Matt Brown never came back from the producer of this show.
Right. Yeah. It was like, your face was frozen by the time you got there. But, they're both going to play in it. They both do play in it. And I think it's not necessarily going to impact the total as much as a lot of people think, unless your subarctic temperatures come with Arctic-type winds. And if that happens, then there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, Andrew Luck was obviously affected by the cold weather. We've seen Jared Goff at a game in Chicago earlier this year that was like 30 degrees, act like it was negative 30, minus 30 rather. So some quarterbacks affected more than others. It won't affect Tom Brady. Will it affect Patrick Mahomes?
Didn't last week.
Who has just been awesome. Didn't last week. We'll see if it does as the temperature drops here. Chiefs 3-point favorites. Total down to 55.5. It's the AFC Championship. We'll talk Super Bowl matchups next. It's Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app from Park MGM. Back on Behind the Book from Park MGM, it's the Moneyline Bar and Book. Real nice location, lots of TVs in here. Whole bunch of trophies over there, Jay.
Yeah, right.
It's Gil Alexander from VEASAN, Jay Root, Vice President.
My days in Little League soccer.
Yeah. There's some cheerleading trophies over there as well. Yeah, it's off camera. Trust me, they're there. It's a phenomenal place. Here's the thing. We've got the games this weekend, the championship games, NFC and AFC, as we've discussed. Those are bettable both on the line, on the total, and every derivative prop you may have at the Play MGM app. But there's also the opportunity to bet two ways into the Super Bowl market. One, there's Super Bowl futures. This is what's available right now. New Orleans plus 170 right now. For every 100 you put down on the Saints, you'd win 170 back if they win the Super Bowl. Kansas City, the next shortest shot at plus 240. The Rams plus 300, and the Patriots in the rear at plus 350. There's four potential matchups, obviously, here. And this is pretty interesting to project forward. Obviously, this is going to be affected by what happens this Sunday. Does someone get hurt? Is one team more impressive than another in their victory? But as we look ahead right now, there's some interesting lines out there in the bookmaking sphere, in the odds-making sphere. Some folks have the Rams, if they get through, no matter who they play, as a pick'em against both the Patriots or the Chiefs. And they have the Saints at minus 1.5 versus either the Patriots or the Chiefs. You do not see it that way.
I do not. I think if the Patriots get in against the Rams, I think you clearly have to make the Patriots, 1.5, and if the public comes in and takes the Rams against the Patriots, okay. I missed the mark on that. But there's worse things in the world than rooting for the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I do think the public, if the Patriots are in the game, they're going to get backed by the public. And the interesting thing, you say that bringing up the rear was the Patriots at 350. There's a lot of things that determine that because our position on where we stand.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of liability on the Saints. We have a little bit of cushion on the Patriots. So, we're giving it's sort of like a blue light special on the Patriots, so to say. But if they get in there, I think they obviously become the favorite against the Rams. If it's the Saints, I do tend to agree. I think it's the Saints probably like 2.5. One, they're playing in an NFC East or South Dome. I mean, it's definitely going to be a very favorable crowd to the Saints. Everybody kind of wants to see maybe Drew Brees go out with a win. Everybody's always looking to, out with the old and in with the new with the Patriots. I think the Kansas City game, there's going to be a lot of sentiment to try and see Kansas City get that win against the Patriots.
For sure.
But and if it comes Rams and Chiefs, that looks like a dead pick'em game to me. I mean, pretty much.
We all remember the Rams-Chiefs game in the regular season, 54-51, one of the highest scoring games in the history of the NFL. Could you imagine if that's your Super Bowl matchup
That's the Super
in
Bowl
Atlanta?
match. Yeah, it's going to be pick, and the total is going to be like 63.5.
Oh, it's going to be higher than
64
that,
and a
isn't
half.
it?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe next time it will be higher, if that in fact is the matchup. But you said one thing in there, and I don't want to gloss over the point, which is I said the Patriots at plus 350. Plus 350 happens to be your bringing up the rear, to use the phrase that I used earlier. But you're right. Liability differs from shop to shop. So what might be the case in a futures market with you is different elsewhere. And it also comes into play when people the next day after the Super Bowl, they talk about, oh, books did this well, or they did this poorly, or this well, whichever it is. It's not a uniform answer. Some books will do much better than others. Some books will, just sort of be neutral. It all really comes down to what your positions were as a shop.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we've talked about it before, and you've always said, hey, that's fascinating. I manage 10 books here in Vegas and 3 in regions, and some of my books are East Coast books, so we will see Patriot money at those places because most of those people are most familiar with that team, and that's what they'll bet. If it's Rams, we'll see West Coast money as well at some of our properties, but so like Mirage is East Coast, Mandalay is West Coast, so I'll see back and forth some of that, and it'll help me balance. But like the Wynn and some of the standalone places that are skewed one way or the other, they're going to get East Coast money. They might not get the luxury of getting some balancing West Coast money or offsetting money to a certain way. So their results could be much different than our results, and the state releases figures and it all comes out in one big pot, but the way you get there is much different. I mean, last year, perfect example, $3 million bet on the Eagles at the Mirage.
You took it.
We took it.
Yep. You're very coy about that, by the way. I'd like the exclusive first report on any big bet this year, please.
I'll see what I can do.
It's like he doesn't even know me when I ask.
I was trying to balance the books. I didn't want to get out there. Game theory, game strategy. You should appreciate that.
I do appreciate that. That is fascinating to me, and people should know, again, the reason one of your shops is more East Coast than the other is because of how they were marketed in a time before they were under the MGM umbrella. So it is a fascinating thing. Just what the man who lords over 13 books has to worry about. Jay Rude.
Amongst other things.
Other sports are on the horizon. Yeah. They're actually taking place right now as football winds down. Basketball's being bet everywhere. Even some other sports. We'll get into that. Behind the book from the Moneyline Bar and Book right here at Park MGM, brought to you by the Play MGM app. Back on Behind the Book from Park MGM, the Moneyline Bar and Book here. Gil Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, Sirius XM Channel 204. Jay Rude, Vice President, Race and Sports, MGM Resorts International. Jay, any softball stories you want to share on the show today?
I don't think we can share any of those stories on the show. Yeah, my wife would not like me to share that experience.
Next time.
I had a bad tummy.
Once upon a time, a long time ago. Look, there's football. Everybody knows there's football to bet on.
Yeah.
But football's winding down, and that doesn't mean the betting season is over, does it?
Not by a long shot. I mean, we've got, once we're done with the Super Bowl, we're 7 weeks away from arguably one of the best events that we have in the sportsbook world, period.
I will not argue with you.
And it's March Madness, and it's a bucket list for people that haven't been here, and it's an annual right for people that have been here. They look forward to it. It's the one thing that, like, if you get a calendar, right? The one thing these guys go and they circle that date and they're like, honey, I'm going to be out of town that week, okay? So
that's right, honey.
They put in time with their employer and they show up every year. For like 25 straight years, we've had a group at the Mirage show up. Great guys, good fun. They want to be out here and bet, a few bucks on the game and enjoy the whole atmosphere. It's a lot of fun.
My guys from DC every year, March Madness. That's college basketball, of course. And if you do want to attend a party or some event around March Madness, you better get on that now here in January, because it will be too late very soon. There's college basketball, Jay. There's obviously pro basketball. MGM, as we've talked about on Behind the Book earlier this year, the official gaming partner of the National Basketball Association. People can bet on that. And of course, other sports, what we refer to as other sports. Golf, the Masters coming up. Yeah. Tennis, Australian Open, first major, that's happening too.
It's keeping you up late at night, yeah. But Masters is going to be real interesting. Now that Tiger finished off the year the way he did, Team USA kind of had a rough go of it in the Ryder Cup, but I think the individuals are going to come firing out. Tiger's going to create a lot of excitement in the Masters. Yeah. We booked a ton of handle in last year's Masters. I think we'll exceed that by far this year.
All right, just something to remember. Football doesn't mean, with football winding down, doesn't mean that that's the end of betting. All kinds of sports to bet on, all kinds of value if you look hard enough. By the way, will Derby futures be on the app at some point too?
We're not. I'm not a big Derby future guy. We offer Derby future pools that are offered through the pari-mutuel system. Johnny Avello, I'll leave that up to him and his crew to do Derby futures. I know what I'm good at, and I'm not good at that. We've booked it a couple of times, and it just didn't go well. So,
the man who stays in his lane. By the way, can I just say that too? It's also very true. I've probably correctly predicted one horse race in my entire life. It's a different discipline from sports betting.
It is, and unfortunately, I've attempted to correctly predict horse racing more than a few times, and my hit rate is very low.
Very low.
Very low.
American
My son,
Pharaoh.
though, he likes the number 2.
He does. When Jay's son was a young boy, he correctly picked horses like
3 times in a row. Number 2.
amazing
Number 2.
handicapper.
Yes.
It's all on the Play MGM app, whether horse racing is or not. Everything else is. Play MGM app, that is. So easy to access, really user friendly.
And very important during March Madness, because if anyone's been in a sports book, you see the crazy lines, and if you have the app, you go to breakfast, you roll into the book, like an hour ahead of time, you sit down, you watch the pregame, you make a few bets on the app, order a couple of cocktails. It is all good. You don't have to have your butt standing in line for 45 minutes waiting to get that bet in at the last minute.
Yeah, and that's serious. The lines are ridiculous during March Madness. No better time to use the Play MGM app than then. For Jay Rude, lording over 13 books nationwide here, it's Gil Alexander. Thanks so much for watching Behind the Book once again from the Moneyline Bar and Book here at Park MGM. Good luck with all your bets this weekend and beyond.